Welcome to the Book Brothers podcast. I'm Adrian de la Torre. I'm also on Blue Sky, by the way, as I think you are now,
I'm on
David.
Blue Sky as well. I'm David here. Welcome to Book
Yeah,
Brothers.
Mr. David Cardoso is with us tonight. Of course, this is the Book Brothers podcast, the podcast where two former brothers-in-laws talk about the books they've read, the writing they've manifested, and anything else book related. So here we are. What are we talking about today? Well, I actually have finished several books since the last time we recorded, but I will go to you first, David. What was your latest read, and what did you think about it?
Okay, so you said latest read. Actually, I read this book a couple years ago, but I wanted to bring it back up because I like this so much. And I think I mentioned this series to you, but this is the book right here. This is The Player of Games by Iain Banks. And this is part of the Culture series. So I think we briefly talked about it before. But he wrote a bunch of books in the Culture series, which is the sci-fi series back. He started in the late 80s and then he wrote it like mostly in the 90s. But the one thing I like about this series is that it's part of this big series, but they're not sequels. So they're only standalone novels. So I really like that. I think I mentioned before too, like the older I get, the more I like standalone stories where it's like, just give me the whole story. So I get a whole story. So you get that with this book. So it's really good. This is the second book in the series as well. So about this book, this is the Player of Games. It's kind of like you can kind of think of it as like a sort of like an Ender's Game style of book because there's this master game player, and his name is Gurgay, and he belongs to this in this series of the Culture. He belongs to the Culture, this sci-fi like it's kind of like an intergalactic organization of a bunch of different planets, and it's this whole empire, and it's a lot of humans. There's some drones as well, but he's there's actually these series of games that he plays, and he's like a master board game player, computer game player, and so he's like become very like wealthy and famous as a game player, and he's kind of gotten bored with his success because he wins all these different games that he's playing, and so it kind of starts there. So he's this very successful game player, and it turns out that there's a planet, there's an empire, a distant empire called Azad that has this mega computer game that's like a very difficult game to master, and they want to attract Gurgay over. And if you win this game, you actually become the new emperor of this kingdom called Azad. And it's funny too. The kingdom is called Azad, and the planet is Azad, or the game is Azad. So the empire is Azad, and then the game is called Azad, because I guess the game and the empire are kind of like intricately linked and stuff like that. Because the game itself has become part of the culture of the empire. So anyway, he decides to go to this, and he actually gets blackmailed by this drone of his. I forget the names. They have these drones in this series have like these weird names. I think it's like Maran Skell is one of the names. They got some cool names. A lot of sci-fi books have a lot of cool names. So he has a lot of cool names for his drones and stuff. But the drone actually blackmails him because in the beginning, Gurgay is like winning all the time, and the drone tells him like, "Oh, actually, I want you to cheat because that way, uh, if you cheat, then well, he tries to convince Gurgay to cheat somehow because I forget exactly why he wants him to cheat, but he's trying to convince him that it's better to cheat. Gurgay agrees to do it, but actually, when the game happens, he doesn't cheat. But the drone actually records him saying that he will cheat, and so he uses that to blackmail Gurgay, and then to say like, "Oh, now you have to agree to the game in Azad because like he's gonna like ruin his career and stuff like that." So he agrees to go on this game, and he goes on this long like adventure in space. So it takes like 2 years, and he practices the game on the ship, which I thought was kind of a slow part of the novel, to be honest. But I thought it was kind of interesting. But it was kind of slow because it's like that's like the middle part of the novel where he's like traveling to Azad, and you're like, I just want to see this game happen. But he's like learning the game, the intricacies of it, and everything. So it's pretty interesting. Probably the most fascinating thing about the book, I would say, is it's about this game, and because Gurgay has played like a variety of games, but we never know specifically about these games, which I kind of like
Hmm.
because Banks doesn't give you exact detail of like this is the rule, because he could have done that in the book. You're gonna like, oh, this is the rule, move this piece here, move this piece here, and then like there's like different boards and stuff, but he doesn't go into too much detail. So he leaves it up to your imagination to kind of like figure out like exactly how the game works, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, yeah. So anyway, he practices the game on this ship, and so he's going over to Azad, and then he gets there on one of the planets of that kingdom. And yeah, so he's like he actually moves up the ranks pretty quickly because like his style, the way he plays the game is very different because he's like an off-worlder, and so all these other game players on Azad don't know how to like combat him and stuff like that. And then so he works his way up to the final boss, as it were, like the Emperor of Azad. And then at the end, there's like a big they have to go to like a final planet. It's like a fire planet. It kind of sounds cheesy, but it's actually a pretty cool scene because like there's like I guess on this planet there's like a big volcano that like kind of recycles the planet and everything burns again and revives again once it's all burned down. And so they time this game to end at that time. So then there's also this big fire while they're playing this like computer board game and stuff. On the, I almost imagine. Do you remember Yu-Gi-Oh back in the day?
I know
Oh,
of Yu-Gi-Oh, but I never
okay.
played it.
I somehow envision them playing like on this big like holographic computer game, and they're off to the side, and then, like there's like cards being played and like military units being played, and like I kind of imagine them up on these podiums playing this game with like fires around them. So I kind of have that visual of the game. But anyway, so Gergely, so he almost gets assassinated. So the emperor guy wants to take him out basically, but his drone helps him, and they end up killing the emperor. It's like the game at the end doesn't become a game because then he realizes his life is on the line, and that it's really the game itself was to become emperor. And so at the last moment, the emperor's like, I'm just going to kill this guy because he's going to win. And so it's like it's kind of like it's almost like Ender's Game in a way, in that way, where it's like it's not a game. He thought it was a game, and then he realized the game was a kind of like a facade for his life, kind of thing, like a life and death thing. So that's kind
It
of cool.
was a game, but he was the one being played.
Yes, that's exactly right. And you turn out, so then he does win, and then he becomes emperor, and the drone lets him know, like, oh, by the way, I wanted you to come to this planet because the culture wanted to take out this kingdom because this planet is run by a corrupt government, and there's a lot of poverty. And Banks actually mentions all the like income inequality because we've actually briefly talked about that. But it's like a really poor. There's very massive wealth, but there's a lot of poor too. So he mentions that as well. And so the culture wanted to send Gergely there to defeat him to stop this empire from spreading because they were so corrupt and like the wealthy had taken over. So that was actually so he was part of the game to defeat this empire without knowing it. So that was pretty cool. So there's some political intrigue there in the background, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the game. There was one line I wanted to share from it, which is pretty cool. So the game, so this is a line from the book, but it says the game itself is sufficiently subtle and complex that a player's tactics reflect their own political and philosophical outlook.
Oh.
And that's like the line that I wanted to show. It's like that shows you kind of like how Banks is describing the game throughout, that like you have to take it kind of like the way you play is the way you like view life in a way. And it's very
Yeah.
like abstract. He describes it in a very abstract way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much the novel in a nutshell. It's really good. It's fun. There is in the culture series, there's like a war in the background. There's these aliens called the Idaran that exist. That they have like 3 legs and they're kind of giant. They're kind of cool, but they're kind of in the background in this novel because, like I said, this is a standalone in that series. So that's kind of more in the background in this one. But overall, I really liked it. It was a really good standalone story. It's like Ender's Game, pretty cool. Yeah, I give it like a good 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good.
Nice. Yeah, that does sound like a lot like Ender's Game, and the ending
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of. Have you read the Red Rising book, the first one?
No, I've heard
The-
of
I,
it.
yeah, there's some
Okay,
similar
yeah.
themes there. I read
Mhm.
it. I didn't quite enjoy it. I thought it was.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
It didn't really do
you
it for
read
me.
you read Player Games, so you already read it.
No. I read Red
Oh,
Rising.
oh, Red Rising, Red Rising. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know. It was you might like it. You might like it. It was interesting. I've seen Ender's Game the movie, and I actually have the book on my bookshelf. I haven't read
Yeah.
it.
What'd
I
you think of the
intend to read it.
movie, Ender's Game?
Yeah, the movie was good, but that does sound
Yeah.
interesting. So just to be clear, this is an anthology series. It's not like
Um, Is that how you would describe it? It's in the same series. Yeah,
In
it's
the
like
same like universe and world,
it
but
says,
there's no direct
yeah, because
sequels.
it says I think it's on this side. It says a culture novel. So yeah, I
Yeah.
guess you would call it like an anthology series. So yeah, it's all because like there's aliens. Like I said, there's aliens in the series called the Idaran, and they're
Mm,
fighting with the culture, which is the human race. Um, and the human race is kind of cool in this series. Like the human race, they have a lot of trans people. Like there's a lot of like
mm.
that's one of the fun backgrounds. He talks about like there's a lot of gender swapping and weird stuff they do with when it comes to sex and everything. So there's a
Interesting.
lot of that in the culture as well, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's like an anthology series because they're all standalone books.
Right.
And
And the same
also the
universe.
same universe, yeah. And
Gotcha.
the first book was pretty good. It's called Consider Phlebas, I believe, and I read that one.
Okay.
And that one's more like pure action sci-fi. So it's
Right.
kind of interesting. It's a very different book. That one's more like about the war and like there's lots of battles.
Yeah.
But this one is about the game. So
That sounds interesting. And the game portion itself, the way you were describing it, I don't know why I instantly thought of Tron. The way
okay,
that
yeah,
it's like that
yeah,
digital
I could
race
totally see that.
sport.
Yeah, yeah, for
Was
sure.
this a fast-paced read, would you say?
Um,
Sounds like it's
I,
a fast-paced novel.
yeah, I mean, I read it pretty. I remember when I read it a couple years ago. Like I said, I read this probably like I'm actually a slow reader, but I read it probably within about a month. So I would say it's
Okay.
a pretty quick read. It's a good pace. Like you keep wanting to find out what happens next because, like I said, I think one of the cool things about it because he never describes the game specifically.
Yeah.
And so you think you're gonna get to that point, oh, I'm gonna understand how this works, but he never does that, which
Oh,
I thought was
really?
pretty good. So like he keeps me like, I'll learn more about this game. And then he's playing another game, but then he goes back to the game he plays at the end, and he only describes it very kind of vaguely. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is
Um,
interesting because I'm the kind of person that like I need to know the details. If you're going to talk about this game
yeah,
that you're building up
yeah,
to, like I
yeah,
want to know how it works, but I
mhm,
also get like him leaving a sort of mystery to it where you let the
yeah,
reader fill in the
yeah.
blanks. That's
Totally,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. I think that's kind of interesting with his style. I don't think he's the I would say the way he reads, like, there's people like, there's authors like George R. R. Martin that fill in like tons of detail.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh
I
God,
think,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's a good thing, bad thing. But I think with Banks, he leaves like enough there where there's lots of detail, but it's not like overly done. So there's lots of filler where you can fill that in. And so I
Yeah.
think the game was kind of similar in that sense. So
Yeah, George R. R. Martin does this thing where he'll describe in great
the
detail
overkill it.
the food
Yeah.
that people, and then he'll describe like the oil streaking
Yeah.
down the
Yeah.
character's cheek as he bites
Yeah.
into a piece of
Yeah.
meat. It's like,
Yeah.
why do I need to know this?
Yeah. I like it. I like it, but you got to be prepared for it. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, those are good. The three that I've read, I mean, they're fantastic books, but
Yeah.
that's why they're so thick. That's why they're so
Yeah.
long because it describes
Yeah.
every little detail.
Yeah.
That's great. So, do you plan on
Yeah.
continuing this series, or are you done?
Yeah, so I'll probably the other thing I like about it is I kind of like I've only read two in the series so far, and I think there's nine, I believe.
Oh
I'm not sure.
wow, yeah,
There's a bunch. There's at least seven or nine. I think it's nine. I'm not. Don't
yeah,
quote me on that. But I know there's a bunch. I'll probably read at least another one though, because like the cool thing about it is you can always like go back to it and like, oh, it's just a standalone, so I could pick any book I want.
yeah.
And also they're not sequential either.
That's
So
good.
like they're just in the series. So I'll probably
Yeah,
read at least another book called Matter that I want to read. It looks pretty cool. So
I always like when like you'll discover a series and you're like, oh, I wonder how many more books there are. And there's like 10 more books.
yeah, it's pretty fun actually. Yeah, I discovered Banks because I was looking online because I had read some Star Wars books and then I read Dune. And then I was like, what's
Dune's
another
good.
sci-fi series? I'm sure there's another great one. And then someone mentioned the culture. And I was like, what's this? And so that's when I dove
Yeah.
into it years ago. So
Yeah, I forget. There's some series of books out there that's like 21, 30 plus books in one series. Like, the guy's been writing it for years and years and
okay.
years. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's gotta be great to be a full-time author where you just
Yeah.
crank them out. And
Mhm.
that's how you make your money. Like that's gotta be obviously
Yeah.
every potential author's dream, right? I mean, as a
Yeah.
fellow
Yeah.
writer,
So
I'm
to make
pretty sure
money out.
if you could
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
make money off writing book after
Yeah.
book after book,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, he probably, yeah, whoever is, once you make enough money on it, then you're kind of set. It's getting to that point that's very difficult.
yeah. I mean, look at
Mhm.
Stephen King. He just
Yeah.
writes book after he just cranks them out.
Yeah.
You know, before you, Brandon Sanderson's the same way.
Okay.
He cranks out book after book. Like I don't know how he does it. It's insane.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty crazy. Yeah, King's work ethic is pretty insane.
yeah, Sanderson
Um,
and Stephen King, I think, are two. I think they just work. They just put in the work. You know, they just do it.
yeah, yeah. I know
Despite
King
what you
before.
think about their books, just
Yeah,
they get it done. So
yeah. Pretty crazy. Yeah.
good for them.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Banks, I don't know if you know, but Banks already did pass away, so he's already been gone for.
Oh, yeah,
I think he died in like 2000. I don't know, 2010 or 11 or something like that. He's been gone for a
yeah.
little bit, but
Well,
he
that
did write
shouldn't
like
stop
9 books
anybody.
in the series. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, because like Michael Crichton's been dead since like the early
Oh
2000s
yeah,
or something,
his
and
name is
they've
still on every book.
released posthumously so many books.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, for
I read
sure.
one. I forgot what was it called. It was a dragon tooth or something like that.
Okay.
It was like about 1880s uh scientists discovering like dinosaur bones for the first time.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was good. It was like a fun, standalone novel. I don't
Yeah.
know that I necessarily felt the Crichton-ness in it, just because
Okay.
I've read so many of his books. And, when you read so
Uh-huh.
many books of the same author, you
Kind
kind
of
of get a
used to it.
feel for their,
Yeah, for sure, for
that
sure.
one didn't feel like a Michael Crichton book. Like you can tell that
Okay.
they just took his notes and
Okay.
someone else.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I always feel it's kind of messed
Yeah.
up. I kind of wish they keep the
Yeah, I was
original
just
author
excited because I'm like, oh, he's been dead
feel.
for so long, but maybe this will be good. And it was okay, but it
It's
wasn't
okay.
Michael Crichton. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
Michael
gotcha.
Crichton in name only, but
Yeah.
interesting,
Um,
interesting.
yeah. Last point about Banks that I'll mention is yeah, we're talking about writers, and he started in the late '80s, and he started with like another. He started writing sci-fi, and he wrote like 1 or 2 novels, and then he wrote his first book, and then he got a deal with a publisher to be like, oh, if you agree to write a book a year, you can make some money on it. And so he got like a forward advance for to agree to like, okay,
Nice.
I'll write a book a year. So he wrote a book a year. So that's why he wrote a bunch of these culture novels because so it's pretty cool that that's how he
I want
started.
that
And
deal. How do I get
yeah, he
that
got a
deal?
deal to make a book a year. So it's like, okay, that's what we did.
That's doable.
Yeah.
I mean, how many
Yeah.
pages is that book? Like 500,
It's like it's 400. So
400?
that's
Okay.
about average. He's like a 400 page, four
You
or
can
500.
crank out a 400-page novel a year easily,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
I say that as I haven't actually finished my novel, but I think you could.
Now, me personally, I probably couldn't, but there are plenty of people who could. Yes, that is for
How
sure.
many pages? We'll get into this, but how many pages is your book total?
Yeah, I mentioned last time. It's like around. I think it's around
Oh,
400.
there you
That's
go.
about.
See, now
Yeah,
that took you a while to write,
took me a good
but
long time.
now that
That
you
was
know
my
the
first novel.
process,
Now I know the yeah. The process now, if I were to do it, would be 10 times faster. That's for sure.
I
I
would hope
wouldn't drag
so.
myself through it so much. Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Right. I wouldn't be George R. R. Martin over here.
No.
uh,
So anyway, yeah. So speaking of
yeah.
sci-fi, so
Yeah.
a book I
Let's
read
dig into
recently that I was very excited to read, and I read it pretty quick. I read it in a couple of weeks. It took me probably could have gotten it done sooner, but 2001, The Space Odyssey,
Ooh.
Arthur C. Clarke, obviously turned into the epic movie directed by Mr. Stanley Kubrick, which I did not know that this was written concurrently, not concurrently. It was written for the purpose of Stanley Kubrick to adapt it into a screenplay to
Yeah.
make the movie. So
Right.
the
Yeah.
author
Yeah.
talks about that in the forward of the book. I thought that was really cool. And
Wow.
so yeah, I read this, and if you've seen the movie, the book is beat by beat the same exact story. There are obviously there's more stuff that the author added in, like the Moon Watcher character, the ape
Mhm.
like character we see in the beginning of the movie. There's several chapters where he sort of describes his life and the process of sort of slowly but surely evolving after the monolith arrives and stuff. So I thought that was really cool because in the movie it's relatively short. You don't really get a lot of detail. And then yeah, they changed some stuff up. I thought that was interesting. So in the movie, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie or read the book, when
It's a long time ago. So.
yeah, when Poole, the character Poole, goes out into the to fix the dish, the satellite dish, uh, in the movie, Hal attacks him and kind of like launches him off into space.
Mhm.
In the book, that doesn't in the book, he does the same thing, except and I think Bowman gets into the one of the pods to go out there and stuff. But in the
Mhm.
book, he doesn't do that. In the book, he stays put in the ship. Hal opens one of the pod bay doors, and then it causes a pressure, all
Oh,
the
okay.
air to leak out of the
He
ship and
gets
stuff.
trot out in the book.
Yeah, and
Like
he
I
has to
can't
deal
remember how.
with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I thought that was really interesting because it was interesting how the in the movie Kubrick added more action, whereas the book there's less action, but it's still the same story. So I thought that was really
Action. You think there's action in the book? I
well.
don't know
The
if I would
movie
describe it
you'd be surprised. That's why I was surprised because like the movie has more action than the book itself. So those
as.
differences I thought were really interesting. And then also in the book at the very end when Bowman I'm forgetting
Yeah,
his name
Bowman.
already.
Yeah. It's David
David
Bowman. Yeah.
Bowman
Mhm.
when he leaves the ship for the final time and he
Mhm.
goes into the light the gate the light
Yeah.
Stargate. He goes into the
Yeah.
Stargate.
Kind of Stargate, yeah.
So he describes all that. You see it in the movie, but then like he describes more like, oh, he arrives at this huge red giant sun, and he's just describing the whole scene, and then all of a sudden he transitions into the world, into this like, the aliens made that little room for him to live in. And
Yeah.
in the book, though, you get more detail. Like he goes to the food,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it looks like a box of cornflakes. When you open it, it's some kind of a
Yeah.
blue
Yeah. It was like different
pudding."
colors, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I thought that was interesting. I really enjoyed that he had
Yeah.
more details in the book that you don't get in the movie.
Mhm.
Of course, I still love the movie. This is one of those instances where I can't really decide if I like the movie more than the book. I feel like they're almost equally the same as far as quality,
Mhm.
which makes sense because the screenplay was directly adapted for the book, which was
Yeah.
written so that he could do that. So. And I was telling a friend of mine, I wish more directors would do that. Like you pair a director with a great author, and you're like, "Hey, write me a book about this such and such thing," and then I
Yeah,
can
that would be
adapt it into a
awesome.
screenplay.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We should see more like team ups like that. I think that'd be
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
like imagine if like David Fincher, I don't know, teamed up with Stephen King, since we're talking about
Yeah. Or George R.
him.
R. Martin and someone else. I don't know. Like
Yeah,
imagine
George
that.
R. R. Martin and like, ooh, Steven Spielberg. That
Steven
could be a
Spielberg.
that could be a
That'd be
really
pretty
good
epic.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
And
someone that finishes books though, so maybe not Martin, you know.
oh yeah. Well,
So-
he has a tendency to finish books except his main books, except
yeah, yeah.
except the Song of
Right.
Ice and Fire books. But
Yep.
anyway, yeah, so I really enjoyed it. It's actually, I mean, it's relatively short too. I was like
Yep.
surprised. It's
Yep.
only
Mhm.
300, it's like just under 300 pages.
Mhm.
And if you love the movie, which most people do, especially if you're a sci-fi nerd like us, I think you'll love the book. It's an easy read. It's a fast read, and you learn a little bit more about the world and about the monolith and the aliens and stuff. Not a lot more. There's still a huge shroud of
Yeah.
mystery, but definitely more than what we got in the movie. Because in the movie, and I didn't know this, by the way.
Okay. This
Oh,
is
there's the
Lily doing.
cat. What he's
Yeah.
like, he's our co-host. He's
This
our
is
third host.
Lily. This
Yeah.
is girl Lily.
What
Hey
books is
Lily.
she reading this month?
She is not reading right now.
Oh, not right now. That's
Yeah.
good.
She's eating.
No,
She's too busy eating.
but
It's cooking.
what was I saying? Yeah, so if you're a fan of the book and if you're a fan of the movie, you'll love the book. And I think it's a quick read, like I said, and you get so many more details about stuff. And also, what I didn't know was that Kubrick had planned to he they developed concept art for what the aliens might look like in the movie. He scrapped it. He never used any of it, which I didn't know that either. But I think it's better. I think it's better to have the mystery of who are these aliens? What do they look like? And you get a little bit more about them in the book, but not too much more. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So actually, I wanted to add to that. So the aliens look like Lily over here. No, I'm just
Yeah, they look
kidding.
like they're just cats.
Well,
Cats run the
they're just
universe.
cat
That's why the
aliens.
Egyptians worshipped cats because they built the
Oh yeah,
pyramids, right?
maybe she is again. Yeah, cat aliens. But yeah, I just saw a video about that talking about 2001, and they did scrap the aliens, and that was like a brilliant idea. I think just leaving it completely ambiguous.
Yeah,
All you see is the monolith, and so you just have to guess. That's it.
yeah. I like the
Yeah,
ambiguity of it.
yeah, yeah.
And now that I read this, I'm excited because I want to read 2010, which is a
Okay.
sequel.
Yeah.
which they also made a movie for, which I
Okay.
never watched because I thought, how could you top
Yeah.
2001? How
Like,
could you, follow that? So,
mhm.
I have the Libby app on my phone, and I'm in line to wait for 2010 to be available so I can read that. So, and I might
Okay.
watch the movie too. Which, but if you're a YouTube, I'll put this out there. If you're a YouTube Premium subscriber, both 2001 and 2010 are available on YouTube Premium. So there you
Cool.
go. If you want to
Nice.
watch the movies on YouTube Premium,
Yeah.
um, yeah, this is a great book. I mean, I got to give it my 5 out of 5 because I'm a huge fan of science fiction in general, but I think 2001 is just one of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made. So, and yeah, that's my rating, and that's Arthur C. Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey. So
Cool.
I
Yeah.
gotta put it
So
right here, otherwise it'll blur
yeah,
out
yeah,
everything. So
yeah. I actually have a different cover. I have an older
yeah.
cover that's pretty cool too. But yeah, 2001. So I already read this book. So I actually prefer the book over the movie.
Oh,
So I'm one of
why
those
is
guys,
that?
at least on this one. So I'm very mixed on the movie. Now, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. There's actually like I would say there's like 5 moments that make it like a legendary movie, and it's deserving of that. It still deserves like a lot of credit for what it is, but man, it's just too slow. I'm sorry. Like there's just the moments of just Kubrick, just the the stations and the classical music and the running in the ships. 10-minute scenes of just nothing. And then the Stargate at the end, I'm like, all right, it's literally like 12 minutes with Stargate. I'm like, okay, okay, man, let's go. Because like with Clarke, you're getting like a 250, like my book that I read, the older one, is like 250 pages.
Right.
And so you get it in this. It's short, it's snappy, it's sweet. It gets everything in a shorter context, and like you said, there's also more details in it.
Yeah.
And for me, it just reads faster and it's more fluid. So I like that more about the book in this case,
Yeah.
which is usually the opposite because I feel like books usually are longer and there's more detail, so it usually is more spaced out. But in the book or the movie, kind of feels like a really long book where it's just like very detailed and just you're sitting there watching the space thing, and no
Yeah.
one's talking for like 10 minutes at a time. It's like there's no dialogue,
Yeah.
like and then the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, there's no dialogue, because just the apes. Um, so I don't know. I just the book for me really really brings out a lot more. Also, like what you talked about too, like Moonwatcher, like the ape. Like there's a whole
Yeah.
story with him, and in the movie, it's just you just see a bunch of
It's
like
quick.
yeah. But I like how the novel has like it adds a little detail on like the first ape man that was like a big thinker and he was like looking at the moon, and so he's the first like step in our evolution kind of thing. So I kind of like that more. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like
that's
the
my
aspect of Moonwatcher learning how to use a tool as a weapon,
yeah.
and I think that sort of speaks volumes about humankind in general. Like we
Yeah.
always, I think we first started off using tools as weapons, and then eventually we just made weapons to use as weapons,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
going into the nuclear age, right?
yeah. Mhm,
Let's make
mhm.
a bomb to destroy people we don't like. And
Yeah,
so I thought that the evolution from that to today, just in the modern world, not even in the book, is interesting. And also, I was going back to what you said about the movie being having all these slow scenes. I was
mhm.
thinking about that because I thought the same thing when I first watched it, like years
Yeah,
and years ago. And now that I'm older, I'm like, well, you got to think about the time period that this movie came out. It came out. This is pre-Star Wars, right? So we're
yeah,
talking late 1960s is when
yeah.
2001 came out.
69, yeah. Mhm.
So people back then never saw anything like this. So
No,
to
no,
their attention span was also way different than ours, right? So
probably,
it
yeah.
makes sense that Kubrick was like, I'm gonna go big or I'm gonna go home for every movie, but especially
Yeah,
with like the Stargate sequence and with like so many slower sequences throughout the movie. I'm like, it makes sense for the time period because you didn't have those kinds of effects and like the models that they use and all that. Like that was cutting edge stuff for the
oh
1960s.
yeah, no, the effects. I mean, yeah, I mean, when you consider like the effects and the visuals, it's still like that's
Yeah,
great. I
because
mean, for that
as
time, it's
modern
like
audiences, we take it for granted, right? Because A, our,
mm,
our attention spans are shot to heck. I'm
yeah,
saying heck, by the way, because I know this is a general
yeah,
audience podcast. So you should thank me for that, by the
fine.
way.
Yeah, good job.
And B, we've seen it all, right? Like pretty much with modern
Yeah,
CGI and stuff. There's almost no, I don't know, no one's really wowed by anything anymore. I think that's the problem with modern society, modern audiences anyway. Let's leave
Yeah.
society aside. Modern audiences, the wow factor's kind of gone because we've seen it
Yeah.
all, you
Yeah.
know. And what do they say? Like the best CGI is the one is the CGI that you don't notice. You
Yeah.
know, like did
Yeah.
you ever see? Speaking of David Fincher, did you ever see the? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the movie. The one with Jake Gyllenhaal where they're looking for the killer, uh, the Zodiac
Oh,
killer,
Zodiac. Yeah, Zodiac.
Zodiac.
Yeah.
So in that movie, there's actually a lot of CGI, but it's like stuff that you wouldn't even notice. Like they
Oh,
made the
right.
skyline match the time period of San Francisco and things like that. You know, like it's little things that they do subtly. So,
I see.
um, but yeah, but I totally get that. I remember a friend of mine back in the day. He was like, "Oh yeah, we watched 2001 as well in class, and who uses classical music in a science fiction movie?" I'm like,
Yeah, I still like, yeah. And
I
like
like
for my
that.
critique, yeah, yeah. My critique of it is just that, yeah, like I still like, so here, it's kind of balanced with it because like I think as a film, like as me as a, like watching so many movies, like as a filmmaker, I wouldn't have made it the way Kubrick did, but I still appreciate the fact that he did something way different. Like, so even his question of like, why classical music with a space opera? I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool at the same time. It's very
Yeah.
unique. Like there's nothing, no one else would make a movie like this. Like
Plus,
I
you
you know,
kind of need classical music because that is as long as the scenes that Kubrick made, right? So he's like, well, I need
yeah,
something to fill all this.
yeah,
I
yeah,
can't have a composer make a 10-minute
yeah,
minute track, so
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
well, let's use Bach. Bach made a 30-minute, you know,
yeah. Why not?
orchestral suite. Let's use that. I don't know if it was
Yeah,
Bach, but you know what I'm saying. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so 2001, A Space Odyssey. David, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts on 2001. I just want to say this is my cover. This is my version I have, but it's
Nice.
pretty cool. But yeah, 2001 for me, I think the big overarching thing that I loved about it with the book and the movie was just the human evolution aspect. Because it talks about ape man becoming man, learning weapons, and then we're in space and we see this alien monolith on the moon. And as we venture out into space for the first time, we're evolving yet again. And so the aliens give us this like new technology. So Dave Bowman visits them and through the Stargate, and then he's like their little pet for a while. He's in the alien zoo, for a bit with the his purple food and everything. But then he becomes a star child at the end, which is really weird. A lot of people didn't understand that, but for me, that was always just like a rebirth of humanity.
Right.
That was like a new beginning for humanity. I just thought that was like a pretty epic idea. So really, for me, it's like the book of human evolution and like where are we going out into space and what will we become? It's like a rebirth of ourselves and like our technology and just our ideas. So I really love that about the book. And a really cool thing that I don't know if you noticed in the book, but another thing I love about the book is when Moonwatcher, at the end of Moonwatcher's story, he says, but he would think of something when he becomes very powerful and he becomes this new leader.
Oh
He ends
yeah.
with the phrase, but he would think of something. And then fast forward to the Star Child thousands of
Yeah.
years later, the Star Child says, but he would think of something.
I did
I
not
love
make
that.
that connection.
I love that connection. He actually uses the same exact line. So you can actually look
Yeah.
at the ending of the apes and then the beginning of the new Star Child. So that's the same thing. So I just love how Clarke circled back and used that same line. I love that. So I wanted to throw that out there as a cool mention of the evolution. And it's all connected, but slightly different. So I really love that about the book. So anyway,
Yeah,
just
that's so
yeah,
great. I'm looking at that now.
evolution.
You're right.
Yeah, yeah. He says, but he would think of something.
But
It's
he
at
would
the
think of
end
something.
of, yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
interesting. I like your
Yeah.
cover as well, but I love this minimalist sort of that they
Oh, yeah.
took.
Yeah.
They took the hallway.
Oh yeah, it's like that's the yeah from the space station, huh?
Yeah. Speaking of covers, David,
Yeah.
we're talking about never judge a book by its cover, which is funny because they say that, yet I always judge a book by its cover. And I wanted to bring an example. And mind you, I only bought this book because I want to read it. I haven't read it yet. And the movie was like a big deal at the time. And it was Killers of the Flower Moon, right? Directed by Mr. Martin Scorsese. Is that how you say
Okay.
his name? I don't think so.
Scorsese.
But I saw this at Costco, and I'm like, I want to I want to read the book, and I'm here now, so I'm just gonna go ahead and buy it. But I have to say that I hate that thing where they take the movie poster and they put it
Oh
on
yeah,
the book.
I hate that too. I don't like that
Like
either.
so I do judge most of the time. I judge books by their cover, and
Yeah,
in this case, I made an exception. But I have
yeah,
to say that this is an egregious thing to do to a novel. I get that you want to. It's for it's all it's purely marketing purposes because now they're like,
yeah,
oh well, the movie's out. Let's see what how many more books we can sell.
yeah,
Well, let's paste the poster on the book,
yeah,
and now a major motion picture or whatever, or now an
yeah,
HBO series. But yeah, I like a good cover. That's why I love the 2001 cover because it's a minimalist cover. And here's the thing, they did it right. They took this from the movie, but it's not like a still, it's not a poster, it's
yeah.
its own thing. Whereas Flowers of the Killer Moon,
It's like the
or
actors on it.
Killers of the Flower Moon, excuse me, they just took the movie poster and they obviously look at Leo
Yeah,
DiCaprio's face
Leo's
because
face.
he's got selling power, right? So of course, like let's make his face
Yeah,
the biggest, and then let's make De Niro
zoom in on. Yeah,
uh, I forget the character's name. Let's make them just in a little smaller there. So
yeah,
I always judge a book by its cover because I feel like a good cover. It honestly it's kind of what inspires me to buy the book to begin
mhm,
with, right? Kindle notwithstanding, because I do read a lot on Kindle, but when I go to Barnes and Noble or any bookstore, if I see a cool cover, I'm like, that's great. Like that's what draws me in. And
yeah.
now I'm gonna read the blurb on the back and find out what this story's
Mhm.
about, and maybe I'll buy it. So,
Yeah, that
what, what,
happened. That happened to me today. I was actually at Barnes and Noble for a little bit. I saw a cool cover. It was like called, I think it was called Song of Achilles, and it was just a
uh,
cool cover. And I was like, oh, I gotta check that out. And so I just literally opened up the book because the cover was cool. You know?
there
Yeah.
you go. See, so when you see when you see a book that's been adapted into a movie, and the poster's on the book cover, how do you react to that?
Yeah, I think that's pretty lame for the most part. Because I see it, I'm like, yeah, like you, like the cool thing about 2001 is we have different book covers, but they're not at all,
Yeah,
they're not marked taken from the film. They're their own thing.
yeah.
Which is what you should do with a movie book. Because I've read other novels too that are from but actually the book I'm reading now is Planet of the Apes, one of the new Planet of the Apes from the new series.
Oh, really?
And that one, yeah, that one actually has Caesar on it. So that one's like a little different, but it has an ape on it. It's not like it's I don't know. That one's a little. It's not like showing the actors. That one's a little different because it's just apes and stuff like CGI apes. So it's a little different. But yeah, movies that or books that do that are I never really like that with the covers. And yeah, for me, it's funny because it's talking about judging a book by its cover. As a kid, you're always taught don't judge a book by its cover. I was always taught that. And
Right.
just
So
talking
was
about
I.
people and culture and actual literal books as well. And you realize as you get older, it's like, well, you should judge a little bit. Like, it doesn't mean do it in a superficial way though, because of
Yeah,
course there are books like the inside matters 10 times more than the cover. That's what they mean.
absolutely.
And
That's
so
what they mean.
that's what they mean,
Right.
which
But
is true. But
it doesn't
still,
work
you
in
need a good cover
practice.
to catch your attention. Without a good cover, I'm not even going to look at the thing. So that
Yeah.
at least attracts me to like, oh, let me check this out, see if it's worth anything.
And
So
I
that's
hate
still
to say it, but sometimes you do have to judge a person by the cover, right? Because it's like
sometimes.
I'm not saying that you should stereotype
Don't
or what
don't do that
have
all
you,
the time.
but sometimes there's a certain vibe you get from the way someone's dressed, the way
Yeah,
someone
right.
presents themselves visually. So you know, it's a gut. You have to go with your gut sometimes.
Yeah. Like
Obviously,
judging
the
the leaf
stakes
by
are
their
lower
cover.
when it comes to books, right?
Yeah. Or like cats or
Um,
anything too. Cat by its cover.
exactly. But here's
Judge
the
the book.
thing. Actually, I have an example of using elements from the movie in the right way. So I was at a bookstore in Las Vegas recently, used bookstore, and I came across this book, THX 1138, which I don't know if you've seen the movie. This is George Lucas's
George
first.
Lucas. Yeah, right. I heard
Yeah,
about it.
this
Yeah.
was his directorial debut. So
Okay.
it was the opposite of 2001, where they instead of making the book to make the movie, they made the movie and then they made it into a little novel, right? It's a
Okay.
very small novel.
Yeah. Oh, it's small.
And that's still
That's the
is straight
cover.
from the movie. But that works, right? Like that's not it's not the poster.
So I mean, that's the cover. That's the cover of the
That's the
book.
cover, and
I
here's
mean,
the
I don't think
back.
that's a very good cover, personally.
You don't like it? I
I'm not
like it
impressed
because
with
it's
it.
kind of a throwback to like the age to like
Yeah,
the 70s,
yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
and
I
and
can see that being a 70s,
it
80s.
feels very sci-fi 70s to me.
Yeah,
And then like
yeah.
that's still in the back. That's from the movie as well, you know.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think they did this right. I prefer this over this. You know what I mean? Like there's a huge difference
Yes.
in how
Yeah.
they.
Definitely don't slap the actors on it. That's better.
Yeah, because
Um.
that I mean that's Robert Duvall in the back there, but I mean
Okay. Okay.
he's not like dominant anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
I
never
think
actually
that's
seen that. I never seen that movie, but
oh
I
you
heard of it.
should. Um,
Good? Is it good?
it's really good. Well, it's a very dark sci-fi. Um, it
Yeah.
feels like I don't know how you describe it, but it's definitely not Star Wars. It's very much a dystopian sci-fi novel. Did you ever see The Island with Ewan McGregor and Scarlett
Yes.
Johansson?
Yeah. Yep.
So I feel like The Island actually I can't speak today.
Borrows from it.
Borrowed a lot from to THX.
Okay.
Because it's about this dystopic world where here, I'll just read it to you. So in a dystopic world, and it doesn't even have the actual plot. So that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
We'll cut that part out.
You don't need a plot.
The story is about a world where love is outlawed and you
Oh,
worship in these booths where there's like a digital godlike Jesus figure,
okay.
and you're forced to take drugs, and nobody has any names. Everyone has a number. So the main character, that's his name. His name is THX 1138,
Okay.
and he discovers love. And when they find out that he's in love, they go after him and the woman he's in love with. So it's sort of like,
Interesting.
he ends up on the lam, if you will. And
Okay.
there's more to it than that, but that's
Yeah.
in a nutshell, that's what
That's
it's
the name.
about.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
honestly, like yeah, I think as a debut movie for Lucas, I think it's great. I don't think you
Yeah.
could have made a better debut. But I'm excited about the book because it's based on the screenplay for the movie. But I'm excited to
Okay.
read this and
Cool.
just see like
Nice.
let's see what else they added to it the way they did with
Yeah. Yeah.
2001. So
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
For yeah, as far as judging books by their cover, to add on to that, yeah, like for example, I know Dune is a good example, because
Dune's got so many covers.
they've redone so many covers of Dune,
Yeah,
but like the newer it gets, the cooler. I always feel like they come up with a new cool, cover. And I'm
yeah,
like, I enjoyed the book. I've read the first two.
yeah,
Like I still like the book, but the old covers were okay, but the
right.
newer ones look cooler and cooler. So it makes me want to, like, even when I see a new version of a cover and it looks cooler, I'm like, oh, I should reread that book, because it makes me even want to, like, I should probably read that again, because it's like, oh yeah, that book was cool. Or like, the movie's out too, so I've seen the movies. I like the movies a lot. It's like, oh, it refreshes. Even like just seeing a new cover of the same book makes me refresh my interest in it, and I kind of want to reread it again, because I'm like,
See,
oh
there
yeah,
you go. So you so I guess we do judge books by their cover, and either for the good or for the bad,
I
right?
agree.
Like
Yeah,
it might lead you
yeah,
to want to read the book, or it might lead you
mhm,
to not
mhm.
want to read the book. So
Yeah.
I
And I
think that's an
still,
interesting discourse.
yeah. Also, I think I would challenge people to, and maybe like go to like the next bookstore you visit. If you go to Barnes and Noble or whatever, or if you see a book on Kindle, like maybe pick a book that is really ugly. Like pick the ugliest cover book and then read it and compare that and see. You might find a gem. Because like that's not to say, like we just said, like what's inside matters more. Because you might find like, oh, this is actually a really good book,
Yeah,
but the cover looks terrible, but you wouldn't
right.
know that because you would just have looked at it. But I would just say, in general, a good rule is what's going to be attractive at first is going to capture your attention first. Of course, that's always going to be there. So judging the book by the cover initially is what most people do, just like
Yeah.
within advertising. So
Believe me,
that's just
I've had the opposite where I thought, oh, that's a great cover. I can't wait to read
yeah,
the story. And then I
yeah,
read it.
oh
I'm
yeah,
like, oh, that
this is not
was
very good.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
So it
But
works
you
both
still read
ways.
the thing,
I
you
still
still
read
read
it.
the book because you're like, oh, this book was terrible, but man, they got me with that cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
both
I
ways.
wonder, I mean, obviously, art is important. Uh, Cover art is important. So like, I wonder, like, in the age of book talk and everything, you go into Barnes and Noble now, you go into uh, any like larger bookstores, like the first thing you'll see sometimes towards the front of the store
Mhm.
is the popular book talk books.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, which kind of
Uh-huh.
makes me cringe a little bit because some of the stuff people recommend on Book Talk, I know without even reading it, it's probably going to be atrocious. But it makes me wonder, like, what the like how much time and effort are the authors or the publishers putting into really trying to sell you visually on this book that was popular on TikTok,
Mm.
6
Yeah.
weeks ago or 6 months ago or whatever, because it takes time,
Mhm.
right, to get merchandise out there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
I would say
I feel like it has to relate to the story somewhat.
yeah. It's also kind of conflicting for me thinking about series like Harry Potter. Like if you've seen Harry Potter, it's had great cover since the beginning, really. I
Right.
don't think the cover's always been good, but the novel's always, been really good. The story's always great. So it's like it's kind of funny. And when a series like Harry Potter was released, it was already the most biggest mega hit ever. And so it's kind of weird to see like this is where I get mixed with it because it's like why do they keep redoing these new versions of covers when Harry Potter is the most successful book series of all time, and they keep popping out new covers as if people don't know about Harry Potter, and so it's kind of like conflicting for me. It's like I guess because it's generating so much money anyway, they
I
know a
think it's just
new
marketing,
version,
you know?
yeah, a new
Like
version of it
let's
will,
refresh the marketing. Let's sell to
yeah,
the newer, younger audiences.
right,
And I'm pretty sure there's something to be said about like what design styles speak to like the younger audience that we can draw
yeah,
into
yeah,
reading these books. There has to be something to. I mean, I don't. I'm just speaking purely on just what I think it may be, but it may not even be that at all. But that has to be it because Harry Potter, that's a huge franchise.
yeah,
So
yeah.
every
I
10
mean,
to
I
12
guess,
years, I see your cat's tail. That's so funny.
oh
Every
yeah,
10 to 12 years, you get a new generation of kids that are coming up and reading books for the
yeah,
first time. So like, oh, let's what kind of a cover would draw in the Gen Z and then
yeah,
eventually the Gen Alpha and then whatever
yeah.
comes after Gen
I
Alpha.
guess I guess one thing I'm arguing for is all that resources that like J.K. Rowling and I don't know the publisher on Harry Potter, but that publisher J.K. Rowling, like they don't need the money. Like why don't you take all those services to other books that need it? Like why don't you give a great cover to this book that needs it, that needs some more attention, or that's all I'm saying. Is just like you don't
Yeah.
need someone
Well,
doesn't need new
you
versions,
can
but
always milk something for more money, I think, right? I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
mean, Star Wars is the biggest
yeah,
sci-fi fantasy series in the world, and
yeah.
they put Star Wars on. I saw it one time on cutie oranges, a bag of oranges, the cuties, the
Bag
little
of
small
oranges.
ones. It was Star
Star
Wars on
Wars
that. Like
oranges.
you'll see like Star Wars on bread or whatever.
Yeah,
Like that's usually when the latest movie's coming out, granted, but still, it's funny
yeah,
how far they'll go for marketing when it comes to
yeah.
even a franchise that's as old as Star Wars.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it doesn't surprise me with Harry Potter that they do the same.
Yeah.
Um,
Another one that comes to mind are series like The Hobbit or like Lord of the Rings. That's
oh
another
yeah,
like big one that's always a new cover. Although I like there was like an old version of The Hobbit that was really cool, like a cool cover that I liked.
I have an old version that's got it's not Frodo of the Hobbit. I mean, Bilbo Baggins. It's like
Mhm.
Bilbo and Gandalf, I think, on the cover of
Okay.
that print of the Hobbit, and
Uh-huh.
like it looks. I think it's cool because it's a throwback to like that sort of that bygone era where they sort of drew
Yeah.
these covers by hand or whatever.
Mhm.
Whereas nowadays, I've seen the modern covers of those books now, and they're way more minimalist.
Okay.
Which I don't mind minimalism, but I kind of there's something to appreciate about like the old hand drawn
Yeah.
covers.
And then speaking of covers, another thing, like, do you remember like back in the day, like old books that were like either like Penguin books or just like books that had like no cover at all? They were just like the title and
Oh
like the
yeah, yeah,
author it was like
yeah.
red, it was black. It's like there's no cover to judge. It's just a book. Like I don't know. It's just
That's
funny
too
back in the
much
day before
minimalism.
advertising. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
ultimate
yeah.
minimalism. That's like
It's
before there's even
interesting.
a cover to judge. There's like, oh, there's nothing to judge here.
Yeah, you got to find the happy medium between minimalism and maximalism. You got to find something in the middle that
Yeah,
works. I think doing that whole just a blank color and like maybe some kind of like a little visual flourish
kind of.
in the title that's too minimal.
Yeah. I think another cover that comes to mind for me is 1984, like the eyeball. I love the
Oh yeah,
giant
I have
eyeball.
that version.
There's lots of cool versions of the eyeball I like a lot.
Oh
Yeah.
wait, no, do you mean it's the red version with the eyeball, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have that version. The
No.
version I have is more minimal than that even. It's like a
Okay.
bluish thing on a white cover, and
I,
it's got like
I have
a
that one. Yeah, I have that one, but I've
yeah.
seen I like the eyeball one a lot.
Yeah, I like that
Good.
too. See, I'm glad we're talking about it because I want to buy that version
Yeah,
just to
just
have
that
that.
version, right? And sometimes it happens too. Where you have an old version, like I want to update my, this one looks so much
Yeah,
cooler. So there's some of that
I
involved.
may just do that. I may just buy that version and just
Yeah,
donate my version
you can donate, or
to
yeah, you can do
Goodwill.
half price books. You can do half price books. You can
Half
actually
price
sell for
books, yeah.
yeah,
I have
decent money.
Animal Farm as well. Animal Farm is just a pink pig
Okay.
outline on a white background, that's
Yeah.
also George Orwell, by the way. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, all the dystopian novels always seem to have good, interesting, minimal backgrounds or covers, I
Some,
should say.
some of
But
them.
yeah, I know what you're talking about when it comes to 84. I like that cover, and
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna get that one of these days. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is good. This is why you should judge a book by its cover.
Sometimes, yeah, I think so. I think it's a healthy thing to don't worry about being, most people that are going to read aren't that superficial anyway. So, you
Yeah,
could be a little superficial once in a while and be like, oh, that looks cool. Let me check it out.
I agree. Um, yeah, and I'm curious to know. Well, I mean, you're self-publishing your book.
Yeah.
Do you have a cover design in mind already, or where are you with that?
So actually, I got the cover designed already by an artist, and it's actually very similar to 1984. It actually has it's actually pretty cool. It's actually minimalist. So I think you'll like it. It's a white cover, but then it has a black outline of an eyeball, and then the pupil and the iris is Mars,
Oh, nice.
planet Mars.
You'll have to show me that
Yeah,
after we
yeah.
record.
Actually, I can show you on the channel here. I'll show it next time on Book Brothers. But yeah, it's just like a cool eyeball, and it's Project Red Planet because I there is a lot of conspiracy in it, so I wanted to bring it like 1984 ish. Um, hopefully, I don't think it's too much of a ripoff. I don't know. People can ask. You can have a vote on that next time to see if
So,
it's like a rip.
how did you? So, since you're in the process, how did you
Yeah,
go about designing the cover? So, you said you hired an artist. What kind of
yeah.
direction? What kind of notes did you give them for your cover?
That was on Fiverr, so I went on Fiverr to get an artist, and then I just gave him the direction. I said I want 1984, the eyeball. Gave him an
Okay.
idea on the color. Gave him the idea of the color. He did a couple different versions of it, so he gave me like 3 drafts of what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I forget. I did my first version was slightly different, and it only took like maybe like 3 tries, and he got a pretty good version. So we went with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was through Fiverr. They have freelance artists and stuff like that. And he had done book designs and book covers before. So
Yeah, because in the publishing world, it's always like a whole separate department or company that does the covers,
yeah,
right?
yeah, we'll see how when it comes to when I go to self publish because they may want to tweak. I don't know. Like I'm gonna have to figure all that out. But I'm gonna try to do it through Amazon. So I think it will just my
Right.
cover will be my cover. I'm pretty sure. So.
Yeah, like I said, I read a lot on my Kindle, and there's some atrocious covers out
Yeah,
there.
I'm sure. Yeah, I know Kindle's probably gonna have a lot of terrible ones. Like self-published books they're not
Yeah.
good or
There's a
they don't have.
guy whose book I came across on Reddit. He self-published, and he's doing pretty good as far as getting the book out there.
Uh-huh.
But it sounded like a really interesting. It was like a sci-fi action story. But I saw the cover and I was like, oh, this is terrible. But hopefully the story's good. I haven't read it yet. I plan to.
What was the cover? What
I
was
don't even
on it?
remember. Honestly, I don't even remember. I just remember thinking it looked really 3D cartoonish. Like the characters on the cover were like 3D. It looked like cheap 3D characters, you know?
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
just thought, oh, that's weird. And then there's a popular series on Kindle that's called Dungeon Crawler Carl is what it's called. And that is like a video game esque kind of world or something.
Okay.
And the cover suits the video game aesthetic, I guess, but it's still like not great. So
It's not great.
I read
Okay.
like the first couple chapters also, and I was like, this is weird. This doesn't even feel like a book. This feels like remember those Choose Your Own Adventure books from the 90s?
Yeah.
It felt
Yeah.
like that,
Like
you
that.
know,
Okay.
not well written. Maybe it gets better. I don't know. I DNF'd it. So
Okay.
do you ever
Yeah.
DNF a book?
Was it like when the movies? Did they have a book database thing or?
No, do you ever like not finish a book? Like
Oh,
you
not finished. Oh, do not. Oh, Dina. Do I? Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
yeah.
There's definitely
What's your
some.
criteria for DNFing?
If I have a variety. If it's too boring, if it bores me, if it's too long, uh, if I feel like I'm reading it for someone else, then I'm like, I realize later on, like, I don't really want to read this, and I just put it down. Or because I used to do that when I was younger. We can have another conversation on this on the podcast.
Oh yeah, DNFing.
But yeah, when I was younger, I would used to read a lot of books just to like look impressive. So, oh yeah, like I read that book, and then I didn't really care about it, or I forget about it. Immediately, I'm like, I didn't even like that much. It's like I don't know why I read that. There's definitely a lot of like high literature that's like that. That's like there's a lot of classics that they're kind of boring. They're still interesting, and I think it's
Yeah.
good to read some. But there's definitely a lot out there. I'm like, I didn't really need to read that. Like, I have the Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I tried to start reading that, and I was so bored. I was like, I would only do this in a book club. I was like, I can only do this massive boring book in a book club. Like, I would do this if there was other people and I could get into it, but by myself, I'm not going to read that book. So.
Yeah, the brothers Karamazov. You say?
Karamazov, yeah.
The brothers Karamazov. Yeah, the Dostoevsky book. That
Yeah.
that came up so much at one point for me on Book Talk. It's just like constant video essays about, oh, this is a great book. You know, like
Have you read it?
I haven't. I know about it. I know it's like a big epic. But yeah, it's interesting that you.
After a while.
Yeah. So you didn't finish it, just to be clear.
No. I mean, there's books like that where I'm reading. I'm like, I need a book club for this, or I need to be back in like a literature class to get the vibes of this, and like maybe even have like just a talk about it, because otherwise I'm not going to read it by myself. So
yeah, I bought the Count of Monte Cristo from a used bookstore a while ago, and that's a huge book, but I've heard nothing but good things, and I do intend to. Excuse me. I do intend to someday read the Count of Monte Cristo. So
okay.
Anyway, well, good talk about that. I think we're good. I think is there anything is there any updates on your book you want to talk about? I know we talked about the cover. Anything else?
Probably not on the book, just on the channel, on the Baby Sagan channel. I've been, uploading new videos. My latest video was general relativity. So I've been having a lot of fun doing the video editing on that. So I'll continue working on that. I might be doing, maybe before the end of the year, I might try to do one more like children's story on the channel too. So
I like that.
In December, something. We'll see if I have time. But yep, that's it.
Good stuff. Where can people find you on the onlines?
I just joined Blue Sky, like you said, so I'm on Blue Sky now. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. So that's where I'm at.
Baby Sagan.
Yep.
All right. I'm also on all those platforms. Boots Too Big on Blue Sky. Boots with the zeros. Boots Too Big. I have like 200 plus followers now. You'll get a lot of followers quick on Blue Sky because it's the hot social media platform. Right?
It looks promising. I mean, it basically just feels like Twitter, except not so.
It reminds me of like 2009 Twitter. Although not as many I remember in 2009, 2010, there were tons of people coming up as comedians on Twitter. I don't see that so much on Blue Sky, but it's definitely a more left-leaning version of Twitter. Let's just say that. I don't want to get into politics, but that's where we're at with that. So check out Baby Sagan on YouTube, and check out the show on YouTube as well. I know you're sharing clips on there as well. So this is the Book Brothers podcast, and we're going to eventually work on getting a nice little website and a nice little blog going, right? So that should be fun. But I like this idea. Yeah, next week let's discuss what we read and DNF.
We'll do DNF.
Why DNF? Why DNF a book? What books have you DNF? We'll get into that. DNF. So anyway, all right, that's it for the show. So everybody, read on, because half of America doesn't read. So
we need readers. Keep reading. Yep.
Let's get those numbers up, man. Let's pump those numbers up.
Readers are thinkers. Thinkers
75%. If 70% of the country were readers, I think we'd be in a better place as a society. Maybe.
Probably a little more patience, a little more patience, a little more time to think and read. Yeah.
That's what's great about reading a book, is that you have to create everything in your mind.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of a weird habit or a hobby, because it's like you're reading letters that someone else wrote, and you're having to make it all up in your head. And some people can't do that. Some people have a real hard time with that.
Yeah. I think it's like exercise. I would liken it to exercise. That once you've read a certain amount, it gets easier to do it. It's kind of exercise. So it's a brain exercise. So.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of the Book Brothers podcast. Yep.